Good morning. I'm Duffy Stone. I'm the Solicitor for the 14th Judicial Circuit. Before we start, I want to echo the sentiment, I think, of all the people in law enforcement as well as the community. Our hearts and prayers and thoughts go out to the family members and the loved ones of Renaya Wright. Wednesday afternoon, I met with the forensic pathologist at the Medical University of South Carolina. They were nice enough to accommodate us and allow us to sit down and meet with them after the final test results were in, but prior to the report being prepared. The work that we discussed was the work as a result of not only the pathologist at the Medical University of South Carolina, but also a neurological pathologist, as well as a team of other doctors and specialists at the Medical University who worked on this, on Renaya, and on this particular case. We spent about an hour and a half meeting with the pathology, going through the test results. They did this and they allowed us to meet with them so that we could get not only those results, but also my decision on whether there will be any charges to the family as soon as possible. I met this morning with the family and explained to them what I am about to explain to you. My determination, the job of a chief prosecuting officer in this particular situation, is threefold. First, how did the child die? That is a determination made primarily by scientists and doctors. Second, did any fight, any series of fights, or any other trauma that was caused by someone else contribute to this child's death? And then third, as a result of that trauma, should there be charges brought, and what charges would those be? After meeting with the pathologist, getting all of the test results in, receiving all of the information from the investigative report that was prepared by the Colleton County Sheriff's Office and all the cooperating agencies that assisted him and his department. First, Renaya Wright died of natural causes. Second, there was no evidence of trauma on or inside the body of Renaya Wright that would indicate that any fight in any magnitude contributed to her death. And third, as a result of those findings, there will not be criminal charges brought in this matter. Now, I want to first start by giving you a little bit more detail as to the natural causes. Again, the report will be prepared, I believe, Monday. The report will read that the cause of death, the manner of death, was natural. It was caused by what is referred to in the medical community as an arteriovenous vascular malformation, or AVM. Jeff Kidd with my office has a copy of one of a series of articles that explain this in more detail. Normally, a human being will have arteries and veins going through their body. They will be separated and connected by capillaries. In this situation, in this case, and in fact it is a rare instance, the arteries and veins are tangled and intertwined. That causes pressure on the artery and the vascular walls, and that pressure eventually will lead to rupture. The pathologist indicated that there is a percentage that of mortality that goes up, or that those hemorrhages will occur as somebody gets older. But it is something that, at least in the evidence that the pathologist found, was with her since birth. The pressure and sometimes a small hemorrhage can cause headaches. And that is normally the manifestation, and what the evidence will show that gives the doctors the idea of what was taking place. The manifestation of these being headaches are something that was in Renaya Wright's history. 13 days prior to this event, she had been taken to the doctor complaining of headaches. Over a 2-year period, starting in February of 2017, she had gone to the doctor 7 times complaining of headaches, sometimes dizziness, which is also another manifestation of AVMs. and the rupture that comes from that. All of this combined is what the pathologist and their team of doctors led to the conclusion that her death was natural, and it was a result of the pressure and a rupture inside of one of those veins or arteries. Now, in some situations, these AVMs can be found anywhere in the body. In her situation, it was found in the left back part of her brain. The test that has been taking place for the last 2 weeks was determined the second part of my determination, or the second concern that we had, which is, did trauma contribute to this in any way? Was there any evidence that a fight or a series of fights or anything like that contributed to her death? The test that was taking place concluded Tuesday, late Tuesday. We got word of that from the pathologist, and we met with the pathologist Wednesday. The test results showed that there was no evidence of trauma either inside the body or outside the body to indicate that a fight of any magnitude contributed to this. There were no bruises, no cuts, no scrapes, no busted lips, no black eyes. Internally, the tissue that was tested also did not show of any other trauma. The only trauma was limited in scope to the rupture that took place in the brain. Accordingly, my decision then is whether or not, because this fight did not contribute to her death, whether or not there should be any charges. I've been a prosecutor for more than 27 years, and routinely I go into courtrooms all around this circuit in the 5 counties, and I rely very heavily on science. Science tells us the truth. It leads us to the truth, and in many ways I ask the jury, in many cases I ask the jury to follow the science to the truth. And in this case, the science is very clear. The science shows us that her death was natural and that there was no contributing factor to that other than the natural progression of what turns out to be a birth defect. I will turn it now over to the coroner, and then afterwards I will be glad to answer any questions that you have. Coroner.
We hope now that we have these results back that we'll have a final death certificate hopefully done by next week, the end of next week. We'll try and expedite this for the family that in situations like this where it's a child involved, we want to make sure that we do our best to take care of the family as quickly as we possibly can. Thank you.
I'm Sheriff Andy Strickland. I'd like to thank everybody for having their patience. I know it's been a long, tough investigation for everyone. I have a couple of things I wanted to rule out, some information I wanted to give you. I know you had some major questions. It's been a very high-profile case, and it's been tough for all of us, including the family. And thank you for your support and also your respect for the family as well. This was about a 5 to 10 second fight on this particular altercation on this particular incident. There's some different rumors and stuff that the teacher was not on scene or wasn't in the room. That's false. The teacher was in the room behind the desk the whole time that this particular incident occurred. There was a SRO that was assigned to the elementary school system here in Colleton County. It was actually on scene when the call came out. I was there within 3 minutes. Have to be in the area. This did not appear to be a case of bullying. That's something I wanted to rule out. There was no sign of any kind of blunt trauma to the body in any type of way. I know this is a hard case to accept. There's a lot of questions, sometimes why, and sometimes we may not ever get the answer. But again, this death, it didn't occur for any type of beating or blunt trauma. And all the teachers and the school staff and the medical personnel, they did go by correct protocol, and there's a lot of evidence that we have gathered and statements and so forth from the students. And I also would like to go ahead and introduce you guys to my investigative unit, my Major Jason Chapman, and also Captain Angela Stallings, if you'll come on up here. And I'm going to turn it over to them or to any of us that may be able to answer any of your questions. We'll take questions from you this time.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
So you mentioned the 5 to 10 second altercation, although there was no any kind of sign of trauma on Renaya. What exactly transpired then in that 5 to 10 seconds?
I wouldn't say a boxing fight. It's more of a slap fight, so to speak. We've interviewed all of the students, a total of 15 students in the class on that particular day. And before they left at 5 o'clock that day, those interviews took place, and also demonstrated on what, kids at 10 years old may see different things. But on this particular incident, I can't say what occurred earlier that day. On this particular incident, there was a 5 to second slap fight that occurred in the front right-hand corner of the classroom, and within seconds they were pulled apart between the teacher and also the principal that was within a short walking distance from the class. Yes?
How do you expect the community to react to these findings?
I think that they have to trust in the professionals. None of us are actual medical doctors, and it's hard to accept, but the science and the technology that's there clearly shows what really occurred. This was a pre-existing condition that had caused Mariah to actually pass that day.
Yes, ma'am.
So her events right after that 5 to 10 second slap box fight, was it that she was complaining of headaches and then it kind of progressed from there? Take us through kind of what happened between the fight and then being airlifted.
Good morning. Again, my name is Major Jason Chapman. Myself and Captain Angela Stallings were the ones that headed this investigation. I'll answer those questions because we have a little bit more detail in regards to that. After the altercation occurred, the teacher who was in the classroom immediately stepped in, separated the two students. The assistant principal of Forest Hills Elementary was right outside the door, unrelated business. One of the other students in the classroom, under the direction of the teacher, stepped outside the classroom, got the attention of the assistant principal. He came in. He then took Renaya first. From there, all the way around the school to the principal's office. He returned to come back and get the second student, took the second student up front. During that time frame, neither student showed any physical signs of injury. Neither student reported to staff or to other students that they had any injury or any headaches, any complaints of anything at all. It wasn't until approximately 10 minutes later that Renaya advised the assistant principal, or I guess it would have been the third in control at Forest Hills Elementary, that she had a headache. At that point in time, she was moved to the nurse's station, which is where the rest of the incident transpired. So during the actual incident, there was no complaint of injury. There were no visible injuries. And it was not until approximately 10 minutes afterwards, while she had been moved to a separate room, that she began to experience headaches, or that she actually reported that to anyone. Yes, ma'am.
How can they rule out that the slap fight didn't have some level of an impact on what transpired after that?
Well, and that's where the science comes in. The testing that's been taking place for the last 2 weeks, we had a press conference 2 weeks ago and told you that while the autopsy had been completed, all of the test results were not in yet. The specific test that they were doing was on tissue from Renaya to determine whether or not there was any internal signs of trauma. And the internal signs of trauma would have been the indication that the fight somehow contributed to that. If there was a fight, if the fight had contributed, there would have been signs of the trauma, either external or internal. Those internal tests showed that there was no effect of that, and that was something that I know everyone wanted these results as quickly as possible, but we simply had to get that test result in before we could answer that question, because that was obviously an important question for the family, for the community, and for us in our determination. But the test results are now in, and they have shown no evidence whatsoever that the fight had anything to do with this.
Looking at that science, apart from any damaged tissue and that sort of thing that you mentioned, is there any science that talks about stress levels or blood pressure that might have any indication of that?
And I provided you at least one article on this. It's a relatively rare condition. I spoke in depth with the pathologist, and understand too that not only was this pathologist the one that was performing these tests, but the actual report on the trauma relation came from a neuropathologist also at the medical university. There was also an entire team of doctors that worked on this to make this determination. Again, they had no signs whatsoever that the fight had anything to do with it or contributed to it in any way. We don't know. And again, I think that when you're dealing with any situation in which you have multiple witnesses, they're going to see different things. Whether or not she was actually struck, in what way, if there was actually even any contact or it was a wrestle, there's hardly any way for us to tell, which is why the science becomes so important. And that's the part that we rely on as prosecutors every day. It's what I talk to juries about all the time. So when you asked how would the community react, I expect them to react to the truth. And the truth is shown to us through this science, which is almost always the case, at least in my profession and in criminal prosecution. Yes, ma'am.
The student that was suspended, is she back in school?
I don't know. That was not part of my determination, so I don't know the answer to that.
How does the family think it is?
I'll let the family speak for themselves. I cannot imagine, and I never meet with a family and tell them that I know how they're feeling, because I routinely meet with families who have lost loved ones. I cannot imagine the pain that they're going through. I do not want to speak for them. I will let them answer whatever they need to handle on that. Yes, ma'am.
Bullying in this case in general, I know that it wasn't a factor.
I'll let.
Sure. There are a number of things that we looked at during this investigation, and I want to clarify several of them while we're all here today. First and foremost, we did in the beginning, as you heard Solicitor Stone and Sheriff Strickland mention, we did in the beginning ask for the family's patience, the public's patience, that this was going to be a very involved investigation. There's a reason that there was a strict amount of silence in this case, because of the fact that it was inside the school, the sheer number of witnesses, and the amount of evidence that had to be processed by the investigators at the sheriff's office. And in order to maintain the integrity of that case and ensure that no one from our staff was reacting to anything but science and truth, was that we had to seal this up. The family and their attorneys, and we are very appreciative of the respect that they gave us and the patience that they displayed during this long time investigation. Same thing with the public. I know everyone wants to know what happened. I myself have a child in that school. Everyone has questions they wanted answered. But we had to go about this in the proper manner to make sure that we were investigating it properly and not reacting to anything but what the crime scene revealed and what other evidence obtained throughout the investigation revealed. A couple of those things the sheriff mentioned earlier. There was an SRO stationed at Forest Hills Elementary. That SRO was on duty, and he was on post at the time of this incident. He was not in that classroom, but he was on duty at school. One of the second rumor, there was not a teacher present in the classroom, or that she wasn't paying attention. Nothing that we have found during the investigation says anything other than the teacher was in control of the classroom. She was present. She was in the classroom. She was at her desk, and she immediately responded to the situation to separate the two children and notify an administrator. And, of course, the bullying issue that you asked about. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember, just like we told the family when we talked to them this morning, we did not investigate the Colleton County School District for bullying. we investigated the death of Renaya Wright. That is it. We investigated this incident and anything that morning that may have played a part in that incident. Based on the investigation of this incident that took place today, on the 25th of March, 2019, bullying did not play a part in that incident. There is no record, either with school officials, all of the administrators that were interviewed, teaching staff, and every one of the students, to include friends of Renaya that were talked to, no indication whatsoever that bullying played a part in this. This was simply two children who did not get along, and apparently prior to this had not had any incidents. No bullying. Is there anything else in regards to the actual investigation that I might can answer? Yes, sir.
So, I mean, we're talking about two young children, but it wasn't bullying. But why were they slapping each other? Did anybody indicate what sort of sparked that disagreement?
Both, we actually have a statement from Renaya that was taken, and they have obviously statements from the other children that were involved, or that were in the classroom, as well as the other child that was involved. And it appears to be petty children's things. We're not going to go into the actual detail of exactly what it was, but it did not appear to have been anything that transpired prior to that date, or nothing that had grown from any type of ongoing problem with one another. Matter of fact, speaking with the teachers of both of those students, there's not any documented incidents prior to that with them having any issue. Yes, ma'am.
Was there any video surveillance that you were able to view in the classroom?
Okay, that's one thing we will clarify as well. There is no video surveillance inside the individual classrooms. Forest Hills Elementary School does have video surveillance inside the commons areas, the hallways, the exterior of the school. All of that video surveillance footage, the entire day's worth of video surveillance footage was obtained. It was secured immediately by Colleton County School District the day of the incident, and it was transferred over to investigators and then transferred over to Solicitor Stone and his personnel. It was reviewed in its entirety, all 7 hours that was collected. Each individual camera was reviewed both by investigators and the solicitor staff. And everything that I'm telling you today, the video surveillance played a part in solidifying those statements. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any other video? We heard a rumor that maybe a student had taken stuff on video.
We have heard the same rumors, and despite our extensive, exhausting search, we have no video outside of what was obtained from the school district and their cameras.
A quick question, just for my own clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
So if this fight had never happened, would Renaya Wright have still passed away? Was there?
I believe the solicitor's got a better answer for that than I do.
According to the pathologist, it was these hemorrhages can take place just about at any time. The short answer to that question is yes, because the fight did not have anything to do with her passing away. It did not have anything to do with the rupture, and it did not facilitate it. At least there's no evidence of that. So the answer is yes, it was a matter of time, unfortunately, that this would rupture, and the rupture, and of course the other issue with this is, as I said earlier, this can be in any part of the body, or in a number of parts of the body. In this case, it was in her brain.
So it sounds like you're saying it's almost like not a coincidence, but the fight happened at that time.
Yep, it's going to, yes. Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarification, can you say, I know you said that she went to the doctor how many days prior to this incident?
13 days prior to the incident, and then over a period starting in February of 2017 was the first time that at least as far as I went back on the medical records, February of 2017, she went to the doctor complaining of headaches, and then from there on 6 other times, including the time which was 13 days prior to this incident. And again, the headaches are a manifestation of these AVMs, and they can either be small ruptures, which is causing the hemorrhaging, which causes the headache, or the pressure itself. In each one of the doctor visits, there was some indication that there were other things going on as well. But at least two, and I want to make sure I get that right, but at least 2 times dizziness was also accompanying, which is also a manifestation of this. So 7 times total going back to February of 2017. Yes, sir.
Can you clarify at what age doctors found this abnormality? That's 2017, and that's today for the topic?
I don't know that I can say that one way or the other. Really, the finding of this occurred when by the pathologist. So the actual confirmation of the cause of death was that. Now, whether or not those, again, the headaches and dizziness are manifestations of that. She had complained in the past of these headaches. There was a series of doctor visits that backed that up. The pathologist obviously cannot tell anyone at this point whether or not those headaches were directly related, but that is a sign of this type of condition.
How much time elapsed between the time that she first complained of headaches and was taken to the school nurse and then other medical personnel were called to help her?
I think, Sheriff, you may have that timeline. I know that she was, originally keep in mind that she was being taken to the principal's office. She wasn't being taken to the nurse's station out of the classroom, and I think that's relevant. But as far as the time frame, I know you have the timelines, but it was.
I want to make sure we're giving you correct information, so bear with us just for a moment, please.
Yeah, that's right. It was, just make sure we give you exact, and as you asked just a second ago, we used that video footage that you were asking me about earlier, along with the statements to recreate this timeline. So the timeline is very specific based off of that footage. But around 12:48 was when she first complained of those headaches. It was around 1 o'clock that 911 was called from the school. Fire rescue was dispatched in a matter of seconds. The clock actually changed to 1:01 when they were notified, and they were on scene in 6 minutes, with patient care underway 1 minute after that. Yes, ma'am.
Talking about as far as history is concerned?
Was she being treated on any level for this?
I did not see any reference to an MRI exam prior to the event. Now, once she arrived at Medical University of South Carolina, they did a number of those type scans and tests from, I believe they even did them. I'm not sure about the Colleton Hospital, but I know once they got to MUSC, those tests were done. But if your question is, were they done 2 years ago, I did not see any record of that, no.
Was the school notified that she was having headaches? Were they aware that she was having some problems with that?
I don't know the answer to that. That wasn't part of my analysis on this, so I can't answer that. Yes, ma'am.
How long between the time of when she complained of headaches at 12:48 to when she was having practice?
Sure.
So at 12:48 was when she first complained of the headaches. That's when she was in the assistant principal's office. She was moved from that office over to the nurse's station. Right prior to getting to the nurse's station is when she, according to the statement from the assistant principal, she went down to her knees complaining of dizziness. She was then moved into the nurse's station where the nurse began to do an assessment on her. She actually got sick and vomited at that point in time. The records provided by the nurse show that she was doing what would normally be done in this situation, where she was doing an assessment of vitals, blood pressure, breathing rate, so forth. And then she vomited partially a second time, and that's when she became what they're referring to as unresponsive. Very short amount of time, and one thing that the sheriff had mentioned earlier and that I want to reiterate is that, again, dealing with this one single incident and the extensive investigation that we've done, it appears that everyone involved, from the students in the classroom all the way up to the medical staff at the university, it appears they did everything according to protocol, their protocol or their respective policy. We cannot find anything in this sole incident that indicates that anyone drugged their feet, turned their head, or did anything other than what they were supposed to do in response to what was happening.
Again, I think those medical articles are out there for you to have a copy of if you need help with that. Thank you for your time today.
My name is Martina Sorrow. I am one of the attorneys representing Ashley Wright. Of course, she is the mother of Renaya Wright. I have some prepared statements that I'm going to give for prepared remarks, after which I may take a couple of questions if time allows. I believe that Ms. Wright would like to make a statement. We're probably going to go outside of the Sheriff's Department so they can get back to the business of keeping Colleton County safe. So if you all would, if you're interested in hearing her remarks, we're going to move over afterwards. Let me start by thanking Solicitor Stone, Sheriff Strickland, and the entire Colleton County Sheriff's Department and Coroner Harvey for their work on this investigation. I particularly want to thank Major Chapman and Detective Stallings, and I will say that Major Chapman has held our hand throughout this entire process. He's been so extremely responsive. I really truly felt like he felt the pain of the family, and he wanted to make sure that the Sheriff's Department did a good job, and we certainly commend him for that. He's a man of his word, and I appreciate that. While we certainly respect the efforts and the initial, and I'm going to stress the word initial, findings that have been presented to us today, we certainly know that this is not where the story ends. This is just the very beginning. As we have always maintained, on March 25, 2019, Renaya Wright was involved in a physical altercation with a student with whom she had an ongoing conflict for at least the past 2 years. We have engaged our own independent private investigator who's interviewed several students, at least 2 of whom were in the classroom that day. Our investigator has over 25 years of law enforcement experience. He retired in 2012 from local jurisdiction and then began PI work. He has a celebration in the community. I want to repeat some of his reports and thank you for referring to him as the word March 25th, and Renaya were all in PE class with Ms. Booth and Coach Ritz. While reporting student and Renaya were talking, student 2 approached and started saying hurtful things to Renaya. Renaya responded, "I'm not ugly. You shut up." Student 2 then told Renaya, "Your mama is broke. You got a big nose. You look like a boy, and you like girls." The conversation ended because the class walked outside to play. Student 2 told Renaya she wanted to fight her that day. Renaya turned her back and walked away. Student 2 followed Renaya, yelling obscenities. Reporting student grabbed student 2's arm and told her to leave Renaya alone. Student 2 pulled away and continued to harass Renaya. There was no intervention by either teacher to separate the girls. Kids in Colleton County schools are intervening on behalf of children. Where is the supervision and where are the teachers? At 11:30 a.m., reporting student observed a verbal confrontation between student 2 and Renaya in the lunchroom. Renaya was standing at the front of the lunch line, and student 2 walked from the back of the line and stood face to face with Renaya. Reporting students saw them arguing but could not hear what either girl was saying. There was no intervention by either teacher to separate the girls. Not one altercation, but 2 by 11:30 in the morning. As an aside, I taught school for 12 years in Greenville County Schools. I taught 5th grade. This is not right. Students should not be left to defending other students. Where is the accountability for Colleton County? Report number 2. At lunch, reporting student heard student 2 telling other people she was going to fight student 2 and Renaya. Their two primary teachers are Ms. Babb and Ms. Culpepper Johnson. In second grade, reporting student witnessed student 2 get into trouble for throwing desks in the school. In the fourth and fifth grade, reporting student saw student 2 slap two male students. Reporting student also states student 2 kicked Ms. Ritter, a teacher, in her knee after she had surgery. Why is student number 2 still in school? In the opinion of reporting student, student 2 has too much anger inside and does not know how to handle conflict without violence. Why is it that our children are left to fend for themselves in Colleton County schools? Student 2 often takes advantage of a substitute teacher to misbehave. This is according to reporting student. On March 25th, there were 2 incidents between Renaya and student 2. Reporting student Ms. Babb was absent, and a substitute, Ms. Carmen Regina Miller Brown, was the substitute teacher in their class. The first altercation took place while standing in line en route to special area classes. Renaya and student 2 exchanged words. Ms. Babb's class, student 2 threw paper balls at Renaya and called her a dog. Student 2 made dog sounds and said hurtful things to Renaya about her little brother. She also filled her hands with hand sanitizer and threw it at Renaya. Yeah, the teacher was in the classroom when this was going on. A student alerted Ms. Brown, the substitute, that student 2 and Renaya had something going on. Ms. Brown looked up and told the girls to stop. Reporting student thinks Ms. Brown was distracted from looking at her phone or papers. Reporting student states Ms. Brown did not leave her desk or separate the girls. Reporting student and one of her friends sensed a fight might happen. So they made plans to each grab a girl if they started fighting. Students in Colleton County schools are making plans to break up fights when they see that the teachers are distracted and not paying attention. Unfortunately, the situation escalated. Sound. With Renaya's head in the chokehold, student 2 slung Renaya into an orange file cabinet, all the while hitting her in the head. Reporting students saw an object the size of a brick fall on top of Renaya's head. The object that fell had the words written on it, "I'm glad you are my teacher." Excuse me. She also saw student 2 push Renaya into a bookshelf. I'm an attorney, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a former educator. If this doesn't break your heart, I don't know what will. Student 2 pushed Renaya into a bookshelf. Reporting student said the back of Renaya's head hit the edge of the bookshelf very hard. Ms. Brown tried unsuccessfully to separate the girls. Now she gets up and yelled for someone to get an administrator. Mr. Guiriano entered the room and separated student 2 and Renaya. Renaya was crying because she was mad and hurt. Based on our investigation, there were several altercations between these girls during the course of the day. As we have always maintained, Ashley Wright spoke with Renaya's teachers on previous occasions about student 2. As we have always maintained, the behavior of student 2 went unchecked for years. On March 25, 2019, no teachers intervened on behalf of Renaya until the behavior of student 2 towards Renaya had reached extreme levels, resulting in a fatal outcome. A lot is going to be made of the autopsy results and the unknown medical condition. when this incident happened. She had no knowledge of this. This was something that was unknown. My client will speak more about Renaya being an active, playful child, the fact that she did not know of this medical condition, the fact that Renaya was involved in basketball. In fact, the weekend before, she celebrated her brother's birthday all weekend long. She played so much she didn't even want to go home. We believe that she was an active child. Again, she played basketball. We plan to meet with Dr. Angelina Phillips from MUSC and review her initial findings. We will offer information from our investigation to ensure she has a total view of the incident. We will ask her very specifically, if Renaya had this vascular issue, what was the trigger for the rupture? Why and how did it happen? We will ask her if a child with this issue is beaten about the head, has her head rammed into a file cabinet, has been placed in a chokehold, has her head rammed into a bookshelf, and has a brick-sized object fall on her head, would it trigger the event that ultimately led to her death? We want to hear directly from medical professionals. Of course, we're going to be engaging our own experts. Nothing we learned today changes the fact that Renaya was involved in a physical altercation with student 2, who has a history of attacking students and teachers. Student 2 remained in a classroom setting despite her attacks. Student 2, who even after we buried Renaya, posted videos on social media bragging about her fighting ability and prowess, and stating that even her father, who has several years of training and experience, won't even mess with her. She by her own admission. It is our hope that something is the Colleton County School District will be held accountable for the events leading up to the death of Renaya Wright. Thank you. I will take maybe 1 or 2 questions, but maybe I've said it all. Okay.
Are any criminal charges being brought against the sheriff's office, the school district?
Being brought by? Okay, I think that's already been answered. I would certainly refer to what remarks the sheriff and Solicitor Stone made prior to us coming out.
Ma'am, so you totally dispute the findings?
Well, I think that, and there was another, this is initial. This is the first part of this. Remember, one of the first things I said was we are at the very beginning. You know, we aspire to the philosophy, trust but verify, and that's what we're doing. That's why we're doing our own independent investigation. Again, we certainly appreciate the fact that Solicitor has met with us. We appreciate everything that the Sheriff's Department has done. But I think we would be doing a disservice to Renaya Wright and to this community if we did not make our own independent investigation so that we can help bring closure to this to the community. This isn't just about Renaya Wright. Renaya Wright is not going back to Forest Hill Elementary School. But student number 2 is, and if student number 2 goes back to Forest Hills Elementary School, when is there going to be another next press conference about an altercation that she is? Another student goes back to Forest Hills Elementary School. In terms of getting the information, again, we said trust but verify. Some of the information that we have certainly is corroborated by the investigation. Some of it may not be. And it's our job to fully vet all the information that we have, and that's what we're going to do. Yes?
Could you speak to how Ms. Wright raised concerns about Renaya being bullied and what the response to the school was?
Well, there was at least one occasion where she went to the school. These girls had been in the class together for a couple of years. There was at least one occasion where she went to the school and actually complained about the young girl. Since the bullying continued, bullying altercation with students continued, she has since called the teacher on several occasions. Let me tell you about Ms. Wright. She's a single parent, raising her kids on her own. She works in Somerville, works not that far from where I live. She leaves her house at 5 o'clock in the morning to come to work so she can make a good living to take care of her children. So what she thinks is the right thing to do, because you know what? I got to work because I got to pay my bills. My baby keeps telling me that these things are happening. I'm going to call the school, and that's what she did. She spoke to the teacher on several occasions. When Renaya would get home, she would say, well, I talked to the teacher. Did anything happen? No, Mama. Did she get silent lunch? No, mama. Did she lose a recess? No, mama. Those are the things that she's done. I think it was the complaint where she went into the school, that was made during last school year. And again, she had several calls to the teacher directly. When you leave it in the teacher's hand, what more is there you can do?
I have a quick question. There seems to be a big ocean between what students told me.
Well, I don't know if it's, okay, I'm not certain. We haven't had an opportunity to look at what their statements are. I can have read two statements from our investigator who is former I guess the 1990s, early 2000s. Sheriff's Department, but we got the information from our own investigation.
Just in terms of this whole thing, we should dig deeper into it.
Well,
the police have this official record with the witnesses they talked to
yeah.
who said bullying was not a problem, and an answer.
Well, I mean,
But
again,
your students are saying something.
we have students who were in the classroom that day. Do I need to go pull their reports and see if they mesh? I haven't had an opportunity to do that. I'm telling you what they told our investigator. We have students that weren't in the classroom that day that talked about altercations in the past between these two and talked about this particular student. And I'll take one more question, if there is another, if there's not.
Are you questioning the autopsy results at all?
At this particular point, we haven't seen them. We plan on talking with the pathologist. We plan on maybe even getting our own expert to review them for us. At this point, we're taking it at face value. Again, trust but verify. And we will certainly begin the process of verification. Someone else made a statement about high blood pressure and would the stress of an incident have contributed to the rupture. I think there is some science out there that might support that. But thank you so very much. Again, my client is going to be available to make comments somewhere off, maybe the site, outside somewhere. We'll figure it out. We'll let you guys know. Thank you.
Before you leave, can you spell your name?
Pizarro, like the Spanish explorer. That's what I told my students when I taught fifth grade. Pizarro.
Your first name?
Margie, Margie.